Welcome back to the Sleep Lorians, a cozy storytelling channel dedicated to the untold origin lore of legendary fantasy characters from your favorite films and books. For more mysterious, untold lore, bedtime stories, please make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Now, close your eyes, relax, take a deep breath, and let us journey together into the deep mysteries of Middle-earth, into shadows and whispers, into the forgotten corners of a world you thought you knew. This is the mystery of the Blue Wizards. In the west, in the green lands of the Shire, in the white halls of Minas Tirith, in all the places where songs were sung and stories told, there was very little known about the Blue Wizards. Very little indeed. Only that two such beings existed. Two figures draped in robes the color of twilight seas, and that they vanished long ago into the east, into lands where the maps grew thin and uncertain, where the names of places faded into silence. They are known, when they are remembered at all, as the Ithrin Luin, a name that rolls like a gentle wave. The Blue Wizards, named only for the sea blue robes they wore. Imagine those robes now. The color of deep ocean waters at dusk, the color of evening sky just as the first stars appear, flowing and mysterious, moving through lands we shall never see. Unlike Gandalf the Grey, who walked the roads of the Shire, unlike Saruman the White, who stood tall in Isengard's tower, these two never appear in the main story of The Lord of the Rings. They are absent from the pages you have read, absent from the Fellowship's journey, absent from the great battles that decided the fate of all free peoples. And yet they were there, somewhere beyond the edges of the tale. Tolkien himself, the dreamer who brought forth this entire world from imagination, admitted something quite remarkable. He admitted that he did not work out their story fully. Even the creator of elves and dragons and wizards left these two figures cloaked in uncertainty. Perhaps he meant to return to them. Perhaps he preferred them to remain mysterious. We shall never truly know. Their deeds, whatever great or terrible things they accomplished, take place almost entirely off stage, beyond the familiar map of Middle-earth, beyond the misty mountains and Mirkwood, beyond even the plains of Rohan and the forests of Lothlorien. Their story unfolds in the vast and distant east, in lands with strange names, or no names at all. You see, their anonymity hints at something profound. It whispers to us that much of the war against Sauron, much of the struggle between light and shadow, happened unseen. Unseen by hobbits in their gardens, unseen by men in their kingdoms, unseen by the very heroes whose tales we cherish. The world is larger than any one story, and its battles are fought in more places than we can count. Their story, what fragments remain, exists only in scattered notes, in letters Tolkien wrote late at night, in later drafts and revisions, in marginalia and musings, pieces of a puzzle that was never quite completed. Like stars glimpsed through moving clouds, we catch only brief flashes of who they were and what they might have done. Even the lore masters in Gondor, those wise scholars who kept the records of ancient days, who studied the histories of the Second Age and the First, even they knew almost nothing of the Blue Wizards. Their libraries held no accounts. Their songs did not sing of blue-robed wanderers in the east. Their memories preserved only the faintest whisper of their existence. And perhaps Perhaps this was exactly as it should be, for Tolkien deliberately preserved their mystery. He could have written their tale, could have brought them into the light, but he chose to let them remain in shadow. Some truths are more powerful when they remain just beyond our grasp. Some stories are more meaningful when left untold. This absence, this silence that surrounds them, invites one haunting question, a question that drifts through the darkness like smoke from a distant fire. What happened in the East while the West slept? What battles were fought? What peoples were saved or lost? What magic was worked beneath unfamiliar stars, while Frodo walked toward Mount Doom, while Aragorn claimed his crown, while the age turned and changed forever? The East, vast and unknowable, holds its secrets still. And so we begin our journey into mystery, into the spaces between the stories, into the blue twilight of things forgotten and half remembered. Rest now, and let us discover together what fragments remain of the two who walked in blue, beneath eastern skies, origins in Valinor. Now, let us draw back the veil a little further and speak of who they truly were before they wore blue robes, before they walked the dusty roads of Middle-earth, in the time before time grew heavy with shadow, like Gandalf the grey, like Saruman the white, like Radagast the brown. The blue wizards were Maya spirits from Valinor. Maya, that word itself, is like a whisper of starlight, beings of power and grace, ancient beyond reckoning, dwelling in the blessed realm across the western sea. They were not mortal men who learned magic. No, there was something far older, spirits clothed in the raiment of the physical world, immortal minds given form and purpose. And here is something remarkable to consider as you drift towards sleep. They were peers of Sauron in spiritual order. Think on that for a moment. Sauron himself, the Dark Lord, the shadow in the east. He too was Maya. The blue wizards and the great enemy shared the same nature, the same origin, both born from the music that created the world. One chose dominion and cruelty. The others chose sacrifice and protection. The same beginning, but oh, how different the paths they walked. In the early writings, the fragments that Tolkien set down in his earlier years, their names are given as Alatar and Pallando. Alatar, a name that sounds like wind through high mountain passes, and Pallando, gentle as rain on leaves. These were their names in the tongue of the elves, names that carried memory of who they had been in Valinor, before the world called them forth. But in later writings, in the thoughts that came to Tolkien as he grew older and his understanding deepened, he gives them different names, Quenya mission names, names that speak not of who they were, but of what they came to do. Morineta, let that word settle in your mind like twilight. Darkness slayer, one who hunts and destroys the shadow. And Rómestámo, East helper, one who aids and sustains the peoples of the East. Can you hear the purpose in those names? The weight of destiny? These titles, these mission names, directly describe their purpose. They are not mere labels, not poetic decoration. They are statements of intent. Morineta was sent to slay the darkness, wherever it gathered, wherever Sauron's influence spread like poison through the eastern lands. Rómestámo was sent to help, to guide, to preserve the light in the hearts of peoples the West would never know. Their very names were prayers, were promises, were declarations of what they meant to accomplish in lands far from home. Now listen closely to how this partnership began, for it tells us much. Alatar, or Morineta, was chosen first, chosen by the Vala Orome, the hunter, the great rider, the one who loved far places and wild lands. Orome, who had ridden through Middle-earth in the elder days, who knew the forests and mountains, who understood what lay beyond the borders of maps. He chose Alatar carefully, selected a spirit suited for the task ahead, for the long journey into uncertainty. But here is the beautiful part, the part that makes this story warmer somehow. Alatar insisted his friend Pallando accompany him, insisted he would not go alone into the east, would not face the shadow without his companion beside him. Imagine that moment in the halls of Valinor, when Alatar said, "I will go, but not without my friend." Friendship, even among immortal spirits, even among the Maya, mattered. This choice, this simple request born of loyalty and love, explains why there were two blue wizards. Not because the Valar decreed it, not because some cosmic balance required a pair, but because one friend would not leave another behind, because Alatar knew that the road would be long and dark and lonely, and he wanted his friend beside him. How human that seems, how touching, even for beings of such power and age. Their bond was intentional, not accidental. It was chosen, deliberate, meaningful. They were not thrown together by chance, not paired by random selection. They chose each other. In a world where so much is determined by fate and prophecy and the will of powers beyond understanding, they chose each other. And so they were sent together as a paired mission. Two blue-robed figures stepping down from the shores of Valinor, crossing the sea, arriving in Middle-earth not as solitary wanderers, but as companions, brothers in purpose, friends indeed, bound together by choice and by love. Together, they would face whatever awaited them in the east. Together, they would fight the darkness. Together, they would stand or fall. Can you see them now, in your mind's eye, as sleep begins to creep closer? Two figures in blue, standing on a shore, looking toward the sunrise, toward the vast unknown lands, knowing they go together, knowing they will not face the shadow alone. Rest now and hold that image of friendship, of purpose, of two who would not be parted, the Istari mandate. Now we must speak of constraints, of limits, of the rules that bound these mighty spirits, for even the great must sometimes bow to necessity. Even the powerful must accept restriction. Like all Istari, all the wizards sent from the west, the blue wizards were sent clad in the bodies of men. Think on what this means, what it truly means. These were Maiar, spirits who had existed since before the sun and moon were made, beings who had walked in light and glory, and yet they came to Middle-earth wrapped in flesh, in skin that could be cut, in bones that could break, in bodies that knew hunger and thirst and the ache of long roads. They descended willingly into limitation, and with those bodies came all the frailties that mortal form entails. They could grow weary. Imagine that. Spirits who had never known exhaustion, now feeling their shoulders grow heavy after long days of walking. They could grow fearful. These beings of power could feel their hearts race with dread in dark places, could know doubt in the long watches of the night, and they could make mistakes. They were not infallible, not perfect, not immune to error or poor judgment. The flesh taught them vulnerability, and vulnerability is a hard teacher. There were rules, oh yes, strict rules laid upon them before they departed. They were forbidden to reveal divine majesty. They could not appear as they truly were, could not blaze forth in the glory of the Maya, could not let mortals see the light and power that dwelt within them. They had to remain hidden, veiled, appearing only as old men in robes, wanderers with staffs, advisors who seemed mysterious but never more than mortal. The full weight of what they were, they had to stay locked away, buried deep, a secret even from themselves most days. And there was more restrictions still. They could not dominate wills or rule by force, no matter how much easier it might have been, no matter how the darkness spread and peoples fell into shadow. They could not simply command obedience. They could not become lords, could not raise armies through compulsion, could not bend minds to their purpose the way Sauron did. That path, the path of domination, was forever closed to them, even when they knew best, even when they could see clearly what needed to be done. They could not force anyone to follow. Instead, their task was persuasion, guidance, and encouragement. Gentle things, slow things. They had to convince, had to inspire, had to nurture the courage already present in mortal hearts. They were gardeners, not conquerors, teachers, not tyrants. They could only offer wisdom and hope that it would be accepted. They could only light candles in the darkness and trust that others would keep them burning. What patience that required. What restraint. What faith in the slow growth of good in uncertain soil. But perhaps the cruelest limitation was this. They remembered Valinor only dimly, the blessed realm, their true home, the land of light and music and peace, faded in their minds like a half-forgotten dream. Can you imagine to have walked in paradise, to have known perfect beauty and joy, and then to have it slip away, to grasp for memories that dissolve like morning mist, to know you have lost something precious but barely remember what it was? They suffered deep homesickness and exile, a longing that never quite left them, a hollow ache in their hearts, the feeling of being far from home with no clear path back. Middle-earth, for all its beauty, for all its mountains and forests and rivers, was not Valinor. It was a place of shadow and struggle, of decay and death, and they were trapped here, bound to their mission, unable to return until their work was finished, or they failed utterly. Exile, true exile, settling over them like a grey cloak that could never be removed. And in that exile, in that homesickness and limitation, their greatest temptation was impatience. Can you feel it? The desire to speed things up, to take shortcuts, to use their power more directly, to force the world to bend toward the good they could see so clearly. When you have lived for ages, when you can perceive the patterns of history, when you know what is right, oh, how tempting it must be to simply make it happen, to stop waiting, stop persuading, stop hoping mortals will choose correctly, to just act, to dominate, if only for good purposes, to become in your own way like Sauron, believing the ends justify the means. But they could not. They must not. Their power was intentionally limited, not because the Valar were cruel, but because unlimited power corrupts, because domination, even benevolent domination, destroys the very thing it claims to protect. because free peoples must choose their own path, or they are not truly free. The blue wizards, like all the Istari, were shackled, deliberately weakened, sent to inspire rather than to command. And so they walked the east, two figures in blue robes, tired and homesick and limited, unable to simply sweep away the darkness, forced to work slowly, patiently, through persuasion and hope, knowing they could fail, knowing they might already be failing, but bound by their oath, bound by their nature, to continue anyway. Can you feel the weight of it, the burden they carried? Not just the mission itself, but the frustration of being less than they were, of fighting with one hand tied behind their backs, of watching people suffer when they could, if only they were allowed, do so much more. But such were the rules of the Istari, such was their fate. And in the east, in lands unknown, they walked on, weary and homesick, but still walking, still trying, still hoping. Sleep comes easier when we know we are not alone in our struggles. Even wizards know weariness. Even immortals know doubt. The journey east. Now, let us follow them. Let us trace their steps across the map of time and distance. Let us watch as the story moves. Eastward, ever eastward, into lands where the sun rises first. In one version of the tale, one telling among several, all 5 wizards arrive together in the Third Age. Can you picture it? 5 figures, grey and white and brown, and 2 in blue, stepping onto the shores of Middle-earth at the same moment. 5 servants of the West, 5 Maya in mortal form, beginning their long work together. It is a comforting image, all of them united, all of them starting the same journey, before their paths diverged and their fates unfolded differently. In this version, the blue wizards travelled east with Saruman at first. Saruman, who would later become the White, who would later betray everything, but in those early days was still true to his purpose, still worthy of trust. Together they went, 3 wizards in company, walking the long roads toward the rising sun, Saruman in white and his 2 companions in their sea blue robes, talking perhaps of what they would find, of what they would do, of the peoples they hoped to save from shadow. But, and this is important, this is where the story shifts and changes. Later, Tolkien revises this timeline. In his later years, as he thought more deeply about his world, as he reconsidered the threads of history, he changed his mind. The story transformed. What he once believed became something different, something older, something that reached further back into the mists of the past. This is the nature of subcreation, of world building, that even the maker may discover new truths about what he has made. In his final notes, the ones he wrote near the end of his life, the blue wizards arrive much earlier, not in the Third Age, not in the time of hobbits and the War of the Ring, but long before, centuries before, ages before. The timeline stretches backward and backward into a deeper past, possibly in the Second Age, around the forging of the One Ring. Imagine that, when Sauron still walked abroad in fair form, when he was Alatar, the Lord of Gifts, when he taught the elven smiths their craft, when the great rings were being made in secret. The blue wizards may have already been there, already in the east, already working against him, while Celebrimbor shaped gold and mithril in a region. While the 3 and the 7 and the 9 came into being, 2 wizards in blue were walking under eastern stars, trying to undermine Sauron's growing power from behind, trying to turn his own subjects against him. They may have arrived alongside Glorfindel. Glorfindel, the elf lord who had died in the First Age and been sent back, who came to Middle-earth with purpose and power. He may have crossed the sea at the same time as the Blue Wizards, 3 servants of the West, stepping onto the shores, looking toward their separate missions. Glorfindel went to Rivendell, to Imladris, to dwell with Elrond and guard the northern lands. But the Blue Wizards, they turned east and kept walking. This places them in the east for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Let that number settle over you like snow, like the slow accumulation of centuries, of lifetimes, of generations rising and falling. For 2,000 years they walked those lands. 2,000 years of work and struggle and patience, while kingdoms rose and fell in the west, while dynasties of Númenor came and went, while Gondor was founded and grew great. The Blue Wizards were in the east, always in the east, laboring in obscurity. They entered lands untouched by the free peoples, places where no elf had walked, where no dwarf had delved, where hobbits were not even a dream yet. Wild lands, strange lands, lands with their own histories and peoples and cultures that owed nothing to the West. Forests unlike Mirkwood or Lothlorien, mountains unlike the Misty Mountains or Erebor, cities built in styles no Western architect had ever imagined. The Blue Wizards saw all of this, learned all of this, became part of worlds that Middle-earth's chroniclers never recorded. These were regions steeped in Melkor and Sauron worship. The darkness there was old, older perhaps than in the West. Melkor, Morgoth the enemy, the first Dark Lord, his shadow had fallen there in the ancient days and never fully lifted. His lies had taken root, his cruelties had shaped cultures, and when Sauron rose, he found fertile ground in the east, peoples already conditioned to serve darkness, already taught that power and domination were the only truths that mattered. Temples to shadow, priests of cruelty, nations built on the suffering of slaves. This was what the Blue Wizards found. Lands the West never truly knew. The maps drawn in Gondor, in Rivendell, they showed the East as mostly blank space. Here be dragons might as well have been written there. The West knew trade routes, knew the names of a few kingdoms, knew that enemies sometimes came from there. But they did not know the East. Not really. Not its peoples, not its languages, not its sorrows and joys, not its complexity. Only the Blue Wizards knew. Only they walked those roads, learned those tongues, sat in those marketplaces, slept under those stars, and there they labored, year after year, decade after decade, century after century, while the West forgot them, while even their names faded from memory. They remained in the East, 2 blue-robed figures, growing old in appearance, growing weary in body, but continuing, always continuing, their long, slow work of undermining Sauron's power, of preserving what light they could in lands of shadow. Can you see them now? Not as they arrived, fresh and purposeful, but as they must have been after centuries, walking dusty roads in lands with no elvish names, their robes faded and travel-stained, their faces lined with care, but still walking, still teaching, still hoping, In the vast and lonely East, 2,000 years is a long time to be away from home, a long time to labor in obscurity, a long time to wonder if anyone remembers you, if anyone will ever know what you've done. But they stayed in the East, in the lands the West never knew. And there, in that obscurity, their true story unfolded. Mission in enemy-occupied lands. Now we come to the heart of it, to what they actually did, to the purpose that became action, to the work that filled those long, uncounted years. Tolkien calls them missionaries to enemy-occupied lands. Let those words rest in your mind. Missionaries, not conquerors, not generals, not even champions with bright swords. Missionaries, bearers of a message, carriers of hope into places where hope had been stamped out long ago, an enemy occupied. Think on that. These were not neutral lands waiting to choose sides. These were territories already claimed by darkness, already under Sauron's dominion, already twisted by his lies and Melkor's before him. The blue wizards were not sent to open territory. They were sent behind enemy lines. Their task was to circumvent Sauron, to work around him, to undermine him, to erode his power from within. Not to face him directly. They were forbidden that and lacked the strength regardless. But to make his rule more difficult, to make his plans falter, to ensure that when he reached for power in the East, he would find it slipping through his fingers. Circumvent, a careful word, a patient word, the work of sappers and saboteurs, not warriors. They aided tribes that rebelled against Melkor worship. In the vast East, there were peoples, countless peoples, with their own proud histories, and many had been enslaved by the old lies, taught that strength was everything, that cruelty was wisdom, that service to the Dark Lord was the only path. But in some hearts, in some tribes, there remained a flicker of resistance, a memory of something better, a refusal to bow. And the blue wizards found these people, these rebels, these holdouts, and they aided them, gave them counsel, gave them hope, reminded them they were not alone, that their resistance mattered. They stirred rebellion among Eastern peoples, quietly, carefully, never revealing themselves as foreign agents, never appearing as Western spies, but stirring nonetheless. A word here, a story there, a reminder of ancient freedom, a vision of what life could be without the shadow. They moved through villages and camps, through market towns and nomadic caravans. And wherever they went, the seeds of rebellion were planted, not great uprisings that would be crushed immediately, but small acts of defiance, quiet refusals, the slow turning of hearts away from darkness. In the Second Age, when Sauron was first defeated by the last alliance, when he fled and hid, they sought Sauron's hiding place, while the West celebrated victory, while Gil-galad and Elendil were mourned, while Isildur took the ring. The blue wizards did not rest. They knew he was not destroyed, only diminished, only hidden, and somewhere in the East he would be recovering, gathering strength, preparing to rise again. So they searched, through wilderness and wasteland, through rumor and whisper, trying to find where the shadow crouched and festered, trying to discover his lair before he could fully return. They sowed dissension and disarray among his servants. This was delicate work, dangerous work, moving among those who served the enemy, identifying tensions and rivalries, exploiting ambitions and jealousies. Sauron's servants were not united in love. They were bound by fear and greed, and such bonds are fragile. The blue wizards learned to pull at those threads, to whisper doubts, to encourage competition, to ensure that Sauron's followers spent as much time fighting each other as they did serving him. A house divided cannot stand, and the blue wizards were expert at division. Their work was subtle, not spectacular. There were no great battles where they stood revealed in glory, no moments where they cast down enemy fortresses with fire from heaven, no dramatic confrontations that would be sung in later ages. Instead, quiet conversations in dim rooms, lessons taught to children who would grow into leaders, protection offered to persecuted communities, knowledge shared with those who would use it wisely. The slow work of changing hearts and minds, of preserving culture and memory, of keeping alive the possibility of goodness in lands of shadow. They operated far from elves and Númenórean kingdoms. No alliance with Gil-galad, no counsel with Elendil, no refuge in Rivendell or Lothlorien when the work grew hard. They were beyond the reach of the free peoples, beyond even communication most years. If they sent messages west, those messages never arrived, or never survived in any record. They worked alone, or at least without Western support, carrying the burden of their mission, without reinforcement or relief. And here is something fascinating, something that speaks to their wisdom. They likely took local names and identities. Think on this. Two strangers in blue robes speaking with Western accents, bringing Western ideas. How would they be received? With suspicion, with hostility, as foreign agents and spies. So they adapted. They learned the languages, dozens of languages probably, learned them so well that their accents faded. They took names that belonged to those lands, names that meant something to the peoples they served. They dressed perhaps in local fashion when needed, adopted local customs, became not foreign wizards, but local wise men, teachers who seemed to have always been there. Their influence would appear indigenous, not foreign. This was crucial, essential, the key to everything. If their rebellion looked like Western interference, it would be rejected, crushed, used by Sauron as proof that the West sought to dominate the East. But if it appeared to come from within, if it seemed like the Eastern peoples themselves were rediscovering their own ancient wisdom, their own courage, their own reasons to resist, then it could spread, then it could take root, then it could survive even after the blue wizards moved on or fell. They made themselves invisible, not through magic, but through humility. They became part of the fabric of Eastern life, woven so deeply into the tapestry that you couldn't pull them out without unraveling the whole. They were the old teacher in the village, the wandering storyteller, the healer who asked no payment, the advisor who claimed no authority. And through these humble guises, they worked their slow magic, the magic of hope, the magic of resistance, the magic of remembering that the world had not always been dark and need not always be. For 2,000 years or more, this was their labor. Missionaries in enemy-occupied lands, circumventing Sauron, aiding rebels, sowing dissension, seeking his hiding places, preserving light in darkness, working subtly, working alone, taking local names, becoming indigenous. Can you imagine the loneliness, the patience required, the faith needed to continue when you could never see the full fruit of your labor, when every small victory might be crushed tomorrow, when your very existence was forgotten by those you had left behind. And yet they continued, in the east, in the lands of shadow, two figures in blue, or perhaps not in blue anymore, perhaps in the simple robes of Eastern teachers, indistinguishable from those they served, invisible, forgotten, but working still. Long pause, like the settling of dust on a distant road. Such is the nature of the truest service. It seeks no recognition, no songs, no memory, only the work itself, the quiet, endless work of preserving light. Two possible fates, the fall. And now we come to the place where the story fractures, where certainty ends and possibility begins, where even Tolkien himself could not decide what became of them in the end. There are two versions of their fate, two different endings to their long tale, and we must speak of both, for both exist, suspended in the amber of unfinished stories, equally true, equally tragic in their own ways. Let us speak first of the darker possibility, the one that haunted Tolkien in his earlier writings, the version that he feared might be true. In earlier writings, Tolkien feared they failed. That simple, terrible word. After all their labor, after all those centuries, after all the peoples they helped and the rebellions they stirred and the subtle work they did in shadow, he feared it came to nothing, or worse than nothing. He feared that they, like so many before them, fell. They never returned west. This much is certain in both versions. This much we know. When the War of the Ring ended, when Sauron fell, when the other Istari departed or were accounted for, the Blue Wizards did not return. No ship bore them back to Valinor. No report came from the east of their deeds or their survival. They simply remained absent, lost, gone. Whether in triumph or failure, they never came home. They may have been corrupted like Saruman, like so many who started with good intentions. The darkness in the east was ancient, pervasive, seductive, and they were there so long, so very long, surrounded by it, breathing it, fighting it day after day after day. And perhaps the darkness found a way in. Perhaps the temptations they were warned against, the impatience, the desire to do good by force. Perhaps these took root, perhaps slowly, so slowly they didn't notice. They began to change. They may have founded secret cults. Imagine it. Two wizards sent to teach and guide, beginning with pure intentions, establishing schools of wisdom, gathering followers. But over time, over centuries, the teachings twist. The methods become more forceful. The guidance becomes control. The schools become cults. Secret societies bound to the wizards, not by love, but by power, by fear, by manipulation. The very things they were forbidden to use, they use. For good purposes, they tell themselves, always for good purposes. But the methods have become dark. They may have started magical traditions. In lands where magic was rare or unknown, they taught, they shared knowledge, they revealed secrets. But knowledge is a dangerous gift, and power in the wrong hands, or even in the right hands used wrongly, can corrupt. Perhaps their students learned too much. Perhaps magical traditions spread through the East. traditions rooted in the wizard's teaching, but twisted, perverted, used for domination rather than liberation. Perhaps the blue wizards became the unwitting founders of dark sorceries that plagued the East for generations. Their pride may have mirrored Saruman's. Pride, the great destroyer, the subtle poison. Saruman fell to pride, believing himself wiser than Gandalf, more capable than the Valar, justified in seizing power because he would use it well. And perhaps in the lonely East, far from any who could counsel them, far from any who could correct them, the blue wizards fell to the same trap. Perhaps they began to believe they knew better than the peoples they served. Perhaps they began to see themselves as masters rather than servants. Perhaps they began to demand obedience, to enforce their will, to become the very thing they were sent to oppose. Their actions may have worsened the East. This is the cruelest possibility, that their presence made things worse, that their interference, their teachings, their rebellions backfired, that Sauron used their activities as justification for greater cruelty, that the cults they founded became tools of oppression, that the magical traditions they started were turned to evil, that the peoples who trusted them were destroyed because of that trust, that everything they touched withered, that their mission, their long, patient mission, accomplished nothing but suffering. Their cults may have outlived Sauron, even after the Dark Lord fell, even after the ring was destroyed and the shadow lifted from the west. In the East, their cults remained. Secret societies practicing twisted versions of what the blue wizards taught. Magical orders claiming descent from the Istari, but serving only themselves. Communities bound by oaths and rituals that began in light but ended in darkness. The blue wizards long dead or vanished, but their legacy, poisonous, enduring, spreading. This version casts them as tragic failures, not villains, not deliberately evil, but failures nonetheless. Well-intentioned spirits who fell to the very temptations they were warned against. Servants who became masters, liberators who became tyrants, missionaries who founded oppressive religions. Tragic because they tried, because they meant well, because for centuries they labored, and yet still they fell, still they failed, still their work turned to ash and shadow, lost not to evil alone, but to impatience. This is what makes it truly tragic, truly heartbreaking. They didn't fall to Sauron's direct corruption. They weren't captured and tortured into service. They weren't deceived by lies. They fell to impatience, to the very temptation they were warned about most clearly, the desire to accomplish their mission faster, more efficiently, more certainly. The belief that if they just used a little more power, just control things a bit more directly, just force people to do what was right, then everything would work out. The road to hell, paved with good intentions, and they walked it, step by patient step, until they were lost. Can you feel the tragedy of it? Two friends, two companions who insisted on facing the darkness together, who labored for thousands of years in obscurity, who suffered exile and homesickness and weariness. And in the end, they fell. Not dramatically, not in some grand battle, but slowly, imperceptibly, corroded by time and temptation and the terrible loneliness of their mission. This is the version Tolkien feared was true, the darker possibility, the one where even the Maiar can fail, where even the wisest can fall, where even the best intentions are not enough. Two wizards in blue, lost in the east, corrupted, failed, their mission turned to ruin, their names forgotten, their deeds undone, leaving behind only twisted cults and broken peoples and a darkness that outlived even Sauron himself. But remember, this is only one version, one possibility among two, and we have not yet spoken of the other. Impact on the War of the Ring. But now let us step back. Let us see the larger pattern. Let us trace the threads that connect the Blue Wizards, those distant, forgotten figures, to the story we know, to Frodo, to the Fellowship, to the War of the Ring itself. For you see, whether they fell or succeeded, whether they were corrupted or remained true, their work mattered. Their presence in the East for all those long centuries changed everything, changed the very shape of history, made possible things that otherwise could never have been. Their work made the last alliance possible. Think back to the end of the Second Age, when Gil-galad and Elendil gathered their forces, when elves and men marched together against Sauron, when they laid siege to Barad-dûr itself. That great host, it marched into Mordor, and Sauron could not stop them. But why? Why could the Dark Lord not bring the full weight of the East against them? Because the East was not united, because rebellions simmered, because whole peoples refused Sauron's call, because two wizards in blue had spent centuries, generations, ensuring that Sauron's grip on the East was weak, fractured, contested. The last alliance succeeded because the Blue Wizards had prepared the ground. They limited Sauron's manpower. Every tribe that refused him, every people that rebelled, every kingdom that remained neutral or hostile, that was thousands of warriors he could not field, thousands of swords that did not march west, thousands of arrows that were never loosed at Gondor. The armies that did come, the Easterlings and Haradrim who served the Shadow, they were formidable, but they were a fraction of what Sauron could have commanded if the entire East had bent the knee. The Blue Wizards ensured he never had that strength. They bought time for the West to survive, time, precious time, for Gondor to build its fortresses, for the Shire to live in peace, for the elves to preserve their law, for the free peoples to grow strong enough to resist. If Sauron had recovered his full power quickly after the last alliance, if he had commanded the entire East within a few centuries, the West would have been overwhelmed. But his recovery was slow, painful, frustrated at every turn. And that slowness, that frustration, came from the East, from rebellions, from dissension, from the quiet, patient work of undermining his power. They delayed Sauron's recovery. After Isildur cut the ring from his hand, Sauron was diminished, scattered, barely a shadow. It took him thousands of years to regain even the strength he had in the War of the Ring. Thousands of years. And every year of that delay mattered. Every decade bought was a gift to the future. And in the East, where Sauron tried to rebuild his power base, where he tried to gather servants and forge alliances, the Blue Wizards were there, thwarting him, slowing him, ensuring that every step forward took centuries instead of years. They weakened Melkor worship as well as Sauron worship. The darkness in the East was older than Sauron. It came from Melkor, from Morgoth, from the first Dark Lord. His lies had taken deepest root there. His cruelties had shaped entire cultures, and breaking that hold, that ancient, pervasive corruption, that was perhaps the Blue Wizard's greatest work. Teaching peoples who had known only darkness for thousands of years that another way was possible, that they were not born to serve evil, that the old lies were lies. Slowly, so slowly, the foundations of that ancient darkness crumbled. They fractured Eastern loyalties. Sauron could never trust the East completely, even among those who served him, even among those who marched under his banners. There were doubts, divisions, secret sympathies with the enemy, communities that sent soldiers to Mordor but hoped secretly they would lose, kingdoms that obeyed out of fear but longed for liberation. The East was not monolithic, not unified, not wholly given to shadow. And that fracturing, that complexity, that was the Blue Wizards' doing. They explain why not all Easterlings marched. In the War of the Ring, Easterlings came. They fought at the Black Gate. They besieged Gondor. But, and this is crucial, not all of them came. Not every Eastern kingdom sent armies. Not every people answered Sauron's call. Many remained neutral. Some even resisted. The maps show vast territories to the east, and yet Sauron's forces, while terrible, were finite. Where were the rest? Why did the entire east not descend on Gondor like a flood? Because the Blue Wizards had ensured that Sauron's control was incomplete. That resistance, however hidden, still lived. They made Gandalf's diversion strategy viable. Gandalf's great plan to draw Sauron's eye away from Frodo, to make him focus on Aragorn and the armies at the Black Gate. It only worked because Sauron was paranoid, because he didn't trust his own strength, because he feared enemies he couldn't see. And why? Because for thousands of years in the East, enemies he couldn't see had been undermining him. The Blue Wizards had taught him to fear shadows, to suspect treachery, to doubt his own servants. That paranoia, that uncertainty, made him vulnerable to Gandalf's feint. They helped ensure the ring's destruction was even possible. Follow the chain of causation. Frodo reaches Mount Doom because Sauron's attention is elsewhere. Sauron's attention is elsewhere because Gandalf's diversion works. Gandalf's diversion works because Sauron is paranoid and weakened. Sauron is paranoid and weakened because of the East, because his power there was never complete, because for millennia he had been contested. The Blue Wizards, distant, forgotten, working in obscurity, were part of the great tapestry, one thread among many, but essential. Pull it out, and the whole unravels. Their influence echoes into Frodo's age. Even in the Third Age, even 3,000 years after they arrived, their work continued to matter. The rebellions they started had children and grandchildren. The magical traditions they founded, whether for good or ill, shaped cultures. The stories they told, the hopes they kindled, the resistance they nurtured, all of it persisted, echoing through time, rippling outward, touching lives they would never know, in ways they could never predict. Two wizards, and their influence spread across centuries, across continents, shaping the world in ways both seen and unseen. Can you see it now? The pattern, how the forgotten story connects to the story we know, how the Blue Wizards, lost in the East, unknown in the West, were still essential, how their labor, their sacrifice, their long, patient work made the difference between victory and defeat. Frodo, little Frodo from the Shire, who knew nothing of the East, who had never heard of the blue wizards, who walked into Mordor thinking himself alone, was not alone, not truly. The ground had been prepared, the enemy had been weakened, the darkness had been contested, and two wizards in blue, perhaps fallen, perhaps still faithful, had made his quest possible. Everything connects. You see, everything matters. Even the forgotten things, even the lost things, even the things that happen in darkness far away where no one sees. The blue wizards mattered. Their story, incomplete as it is, mysterious as it remains, mattered to Frodo, mattered to Middle-earth, mattered to the ending we cherish, legacy and thematic meaning. And now, as our tale draws toward its close, as sleep draws nearer, let us speak of what it all means, of the deeper truths that rest beneath the surface, of why these forgotten wizards matter, even in their mystery, even in their silence. Tolkien never chose a final version of their fate. He could have. In his later years, he could have decided, declared one ending true and the other false. But he didn't. He left both possibilities standing, both the fall and the success, both the tragedy and the triumph, both equally real, equally unresolved. An unusual choice for a storyteller to leave such a fundamental question unanswered. But perhaps it was the only honest choice. Both failure and success remain canon. This is remarkable when you think about it. In the vast mythology of Middle-earth, where so much is detailed, where genealogies stretch across ages and every sword has a name and a history, here are two of the 5 Istari, and we don't know if they failed or succeeded. Both versions exist. Both are true, or neither is true, or truth itself is more complex than our categories allow. They exist in a state of superposition, like light that is both wave and particle, both fallen and faithful, until observed, and we can never observe them. This ambiguity is intentional. Tolkien was too careful a craftsman, too deliberate a myth-maker, to leave this unresolved by accident. He meant for them to remain mysterious, meant for their fate to be uncertain. Because, and this is important, because some truths are better left in shadow. Some stories are more powerful unfinished. Some questions matter more than their answers. The blue wizards teach us something in their very unknowability, something about the limits of knowledge, about humility, about accepting that we cannot see everything, cannot know everything, cannot judge everything. The blue wizards embody unseen providence. Providence, that quiet force that shapes events from behind, that guides without controlling, that works through people and circumstances in ways we cannot perceive until long after. The blue wizards are Middle-earth's hidden hand, the subtle influence that changes everything while remaining invisible. They represent the idea that help comes from unexpected places, that we are never as alone as we think, that forces we cannot see are working on our behalf, even when all seems lost. Their story mirrors the rangers guarding the Shire. Think of Aragorn and his kindred, those grim men who walk in shadow, who protect the Shire's borders, who fight battles the hobbits never hear about, who die in darkness so that others may live in light. The hobbits do not know them, do not thank them, barely acknowledge their existence, and yet they are there, always there, keeping watch. The blue wizards are like that, but on a vast scale. protecting not just one land, but entire regions, fighting not just orcs, but the very root of darkness, laboring in obscurity so that the West, distant and unknowing, might survive. History is shaped by unseen hands. This is the lesson they teach. We see the great battles. We remember the kings and heroes. We sing of the fellowship and the ring. But beneath that, behind that, supporting that, are countless others. Unknown soldiers, forgotten counselors, silent workers, people and powers whose names were never recorded, whose deeds were never celebrated, but without whom the celebrated deeds could never have happened. The Blue Wizards remind us that history is deeper than we know, more complex than we can see, shaped by forces that remain forever hidden. Victory often belongs to the forgotten. Who won the War of the Ring? Frodo. Yes. And Sam. Certainly. Gandalf and Aragorn. Of course. But also, two wizards in blue who died or disappeared centuries before. Also the peoples of the East who refused to march. Also the rebellions that weakened Sauron. Also the patient, invisible work of undermining darkness. Victory is never one person's achievement, never one moment's triumph. It is the accumulation of countless efforts, many of them forgotten, many of them anonymous, all of them essential. Middle-earth survives because of hidden labors, not just because of Frodo's courage or Gandalf's wisdom, but because of farmers who grew food, mothers who raised children, teachers who preserved knowledge, healers who tended the sick, rangers who patrolled in darkness, and wizards, two wizards in blue, who spent millennia in the East doing work no one would ever see, fighting battles no one would ever sing about, making sacrifices no one would ever honor. The world rests on hidden labors, always has, always will. The East remembers them differently, or not at all. In the West, what little memory remains casts them as mysterious, possibly fallen, possibly heroic. But in the East, we don't know. Perhaps they are remembered as great teachers, founders of wisdom traditions, liberators of peoples. Perhaps they are remembered as foreign interferers, dangerous sorcerers, bringers of chaos. Perhaps they are remembered as gods, or demons, or anything in between. Or perhaps, and this may be most likely, they are not remembered at all. The peoples they helped may never have known they were Istari, may have thought them simply wise men, may have forgotten them within a generation or two. Their work lives on, but their names, their identities, lost to time. Their silence is their legacy. They never returned to tell their story. They never sent reports to the West. They never claimed credit or defended their reputation. They simply vanished into the East and remained silent. And that silence speaks volumes. It tells us that the work mattered more than recognition, that service mattered more than honor, that doing good mattered more than being known for doing good. Their silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the sound of work completed without need for applause, the sound of sacrifice offered without expectation of gratitude, the sound of love given freely, asking nothing in return. Can you feel it now, as sleep settles over you like a soft blanket? The peace of this truth, that you do not need to be remembered to matter, that your work does not need to be celebrated to be essential, that laboring in obscurity is not failure, but a kind of grace, that the hidden things, the forgotten things, the quiet, patient things, done in darkness, these are what hold the world together. The blue wizards, mysterious to the end, unknowable in their fate, ambiguous in their success or failure, teach us perhaps the deepest lesson of all, that we walk by faith, not sight, that we serve without knowing the outcome, that we plant seeds we may never see grow, that we fight battles whose end we cannot predict. And we do it anyway. We do it because it must be done, because someone must stand in the gap, because the work itself is worthy, whether anyone ever knows we did it or not. Two wizards in blue, walking into the east, into lands unknown, to fates uncertain, their story unfinished, their names half forgotten, their deeds unrecorded, and yet essential, essential to everything, essential to the survival of Middle-earth, essential to Frodo's quest, essential to the hope that endures. They are the hidden heroes, the forgotten faithful, the silent servants, and in their silence, in their mystery, in their very unknowability, they become something more than characters in a story. They become a truth, a reminder, a comfort that we are never alone, that unseen hands guide, that hidden labors matter, that the work done in darkness is not wasted, that even when all seems lost, even when we feel forgotten, even when our efforts seem futile, they are not. They ripple outward, they touch lives we cannot see, they shape futures we will never witness. Rest now, rest easy, in the knowledge that the blue wizards walked into mystery, and so do we all. But the mystery is not empty, it is full, full of meaning, full of purpose, full of grace. Their story is unfinished, and so is yours, and that is as it should be. For some stories are not meant to be completed, only lived, only continued, only passed forward into the ages, the final mystery. And so, we come at last to the final mystery, the question that has no answer, the ending that is not an ending, only a fading, a dissolving into mist and memory and the unknowable distances of time. Did they fall or endure? We have spoken of both possibilities, traced both paths, felt the weight of failure and the hope of success. But which is true? Did they succumb to impatience and pride, founding dark cults that twisted their teachings, or did they remain faithful to the end, laboring in obscurity, achieving their mission even as the West forgot them? The question hangs in the air, unanswered, perhaps unanswerable, and we must make peace with not knowing. Did they become legends, prophets, or myths in the East, in those vast lands where they walked for thousands of years? What became of their memory? Perhaps they are remembered as legendary teachers, wise men who came in ancient times and taught the people to resist darkness. Perhaps they became prophets, their words preserved in sacred texts, their warnings heeded across generations. Perhaps they dissolved into myth, transformed in the telling until they were no longer wizards at all, but gods or spirits, or archetypal figures in stories told around fires, or perhaps all three, different peoples remembering them differently, each culture claiming them, each tradition reshaping them according to its needs. Did Eastern cultures preserve distorted echoes of their wisdom, like light passing through water, bending, changing, but still recognizable as light? Perhaps their teachings survived, but altered. Words they spoke carefully, recorded imperfectly, translated poorly, interpreted through cultural lenses they never anticipated. Perhaps philosophers in distant cities quote maxims that came originally from the blue wizards, but no longer know the source. Perhaps religious practices, ethical systems, magical traditions all carry within them fragments of what the Istari taught. Distorted, yes, but still present, still shaping lives, still working good in the world, even if the original intent is lost. Did they walk unseen among men until the end? Perhaps they never left. Perhaps even after Sauron fell, even after the ring was destroyed and the Fourth Age began, the Blue Wizards remained, still in the East, still walking, still teaching, unnoticed now even more than before, because the great evil was gone and people turned their attention to rebuilding, to ordinary life. Two old men in faded robes, wandering from village to village, speaking wisdom to anyone who would listen, helping where they could, asking nothing in return, still there, still serving, forever. Did they die unknown, content in success? Perhaps their story has a quiet ending, not dramatic, not celebrated. They simply finished their work, looked at each other one final day, two old friends who had walked together for millennia and knew it was done. The mission was complete. Sauron was fallen. The darkness was broken. The peoples of the East were free, or freer at least, to choose their own paths. And having finished, they laid down in some quiet place, some eastern valley where flowers grow wild, and they died, together, unknown, unmourned by any but those few who sat with them at the end, content, at peace, their work done, their names forgotten. And that would be enough. Tolkien leaves the answer open. He could have told us, in a letter, a note, a final revision. He could have chosen, but he didn't. And we must respect that choice, must honor his decision to let them remain in shadow, because he understood something profound about storytelling, about truth, about the nature of mystery itself. Some questions are more powerful unanswered. Some stories are more meaningful incomplete. Some characters serve us better as mystery than as certainty. Because some stories are meant to remain shadows, not because they are less important, but because they are more important. Shadows teach us humility. They remind us that we do not see everything, do not control everything, do not understand everything. The Blue Wizards, in their shadowiness, in their unknowability, teach us to accept limitation, to make peace with not knowing, to trust that meaning exists even when we cannot grasp it fully. Shadows are not emptiness. They are fullness, pregnant with possibility, rich with implication, deeper than the light. Some victories leave no records. This is hard for us to accept. We who love stories, we who want to know how everything turned out. But it is true nonetheless. Most victories leave no records. Most heroism goes unwritten. Most sacrifice is unremembered. The mother who stayed up all night with a sick child. The teacher who believed in a student no one else believed in. The stranger who spoke one kind word at exactly the right moment. The soldier who held the line in a battle no historian bothered to record. The wizard who walked in the East for 2,000 years and never came home. These victories, these acts of courage and love and perseverance, they happened, they mattered, they changed the world. But they left no records, only ripples, only consequences, only the altered course of countless lives. Some heroes are never named. We want to know their names, want to honor them, want to sing their praises. But the universe does not require our recognition for their heroism to be real. The Blue Wizards, whether they were called Alatar and Pallando, or Morineta and Rómestámo, or by a dozen Eastern names we will never hear, or by no names at all, were heroes. Their namelessness does not diminish them. If anything, it elevates them. They served without expectation of fame, sacrificed without hope of remembrance, gave everything, asking nothing in return, not even a name in the histories. That is heroism in its purest form. And some wizards remain blue, forever beyond the west. Blue, the color of distance, the color of horizon, the color of sky meeting sea at the edge of sight, the color of things that remain just out of reach. The blue wizards are named for their robes, yes, but also for their nature. They are blue because they are distant, because they are beyond, because they represent everything that lies outside our knowledge, outside our maps, outside our comfortable certainties. They are the blue of mystery, the blue of the unknown, the blue of faith that persists even in darkness, and they remain blue forever, never quite coming into focus, never quite crossing the horizon into our understanding, always beyond the west, always in the east, always receding, always mysterious, always beautifully, heartbreakingly blue. Long, peaceful silence. And so we let them go. The blue wizards, Alatar and Pallando, Morineta and Rómestámo, or whatever names they bore in lands we'll never know. We release them back into mystery, back into shadow, back into the east from which they never returned. We let them remain unfinished, unresolved, unknown. Because some stories, the truest stories, the deepest stories, are meant to end this way, not with certainty, but with wonder, not with answers, but with better questions, not with closure, but with opening into the vast unknowable mystery of existence